business, soul-led purpose, and sacred sexuality, the Queen's Council is a container devoted to the intimate magic of queenship, soul, sex, magic, and the goddess. Together we weave a coven to hold our wildest dripping pleasure as magic oozes from our souls, cascading into the world like the ambrosia nectar of the divine. If you're ready to become a confident, embodied woman running your feminine-led empire from a place of spaciousness, wild creativity, alignment, and pleasure, the Queen's Council is opening up applications. Experience a radical and loving relationship with money and prosperity, wildly thriving and living your visions for your most beautiful life. Because being a queen in your life means setting higher standards for your pleasure, your purpose, and prosperity. As a mystic, visionary artist, or healer here on the planet to shift the collective trajectory, you're ready for a massive shift internally in how you be in the world. So step into your queenship surrounded by other women who are setting a higher standard for how they create and manifest in the world. Applications open now, and we start in November. Hey everyone, welcome to Temple Talks Transmissions from the New Earth. So today I am here with Kelsey Bjur, and we're going to be talking about the archetype of the mystic. We're going to be talking about soul illumination and how to stay centered in your work, in your practice, and in your life right now during these times of turning. Welcome, Kelsey. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And just to share a little bit more about who Kelsey is, Kelsey Dawn, aka Matrika, is a soul illuminator, mentor, coach, healer, and yoga instructor. Having trained in rehabilitation and disability studies, studied with masters in ancient shamanic, yogic, and Buddhic traditions, her guidance helps you to accelerate your personal growth to live in alignment with your higher self. She was born on the planet at this time to help guide others through the many challenges that arise as one shifts into higher states of consciousness. She supports people to evolve out of the old ways of existing and into the new ways of being. Welcome, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. So, you have a really fascinating background in shamanic studies, in Buddhic traditions. And I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit more about the path that you've taken, which is a bit unconventional.
Yes, I would be glad to. I feel like our paths lay out one step after the other for us to really weave together this tapestry that evolves our human nature and then is able to be of service to others. And so as you laid out the steps of my training, those are the steps that it laid out for me. It wasn't until I really got into the yogic and shamanic practices, however, that I really found my footing, if you could say. My training really started with rehabilitation disability studies because I felt that natural pull to want to be of service to people that were, seen often as less than or were judged for who they were. I noticed this immediately when I was going through high school and elementary school, the way these children were treated. And so that really pulled me in this direction of wanting to be of service of people. And from there, then living in that type of reality, I was working in the school system, and I was working in day programs with adults and kids and children of all different types of disabilities, living with all different behavioral, physical, all the kind of disabilities you can think of. However, I just felt so limited there because it was still a structure that was of the old ways. And I found that working with those people, I wasn't able to really support them in the growth that I wanted to support them in, because I kept being hindered by the structures that were there. And so from there, it was actually through this time, because it was so challenging. I was living with depression. I was in my 20s, diagnosed with depression, trying different types of medications to get me through this, often feeling that I had no emotion because of the medications that I was on. I would switch medications, and then I would get to a place where it was like I was spaced out. It was like unsafe for me to drive even, you know. And so I made this conscious choice to stop the medication and then ask for support. And this is where my first mentor showed up. And it's because I asked for the support of a therapist. And this person was the first person that really saw what was going on with me and really saw me. I really felt seen for the first time. And it changed my life. I highly recommend having a mentor or therapist in your life, because she told me in the session, she was like, Kelsey, do you know that everything you are saying to me is in the negative? And I literally had no idea. Like, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? You know? And so she's like, just change it into the positive. And I know people can see this as like totally foo-fun, like, yeah, whatever, just change it into the positive, right? However, this was a huge foo-fun. Yeah.
I'm stealing that word.
I also make up my own words.
I love that word. I'm sorry. I just had to go on.
So this was really a huge turning point for me. This changing the negative into the positive was my first initial practice of coming back home to myself, coming back home to my soul. And yes, I still went through massive weeks of living in depression and not wanting to get up, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to go to work and to serve the people that I was serving as a teacher, you know. And after one of these weeks of just having such a challenging week, I had gotten to a place where I knew how to ask myself the right questions. So I asked myself, you know, what is it that really brings you joy and peace and makes you happy and makes you just feel good and alive? And it just came in right away like that. And it was like yoga. And so that turned into my next state of evolution, the next part of my growth. You know, my teacher came to me. She showed up in my life, and I knew immediately I was meant to follow her to Hawaii and do my training there with her. And that it was where my body really started to heal. That's where I was really that's where I really began to integrate my soul back into my body. Because as a child, I had disassociated my soul from my soul because it was not recognized as normal here. My abilities of being able to hear things and see things and know things were not recognized, and I didn't feel safe in them. So I literally created an alternate reality for me to go to until I was ready again. But what happened because I did that was then the traumas and the experiences I was going through in my family and, you know, feeling moments of abandonment and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, they started to show up in my body physically. And since the 8th grade, I lived with pain in my back. I went and saw every chiropractor, every massage therapist, like anything, you know, doing all the things that people tell you to do to help heal your body. It didn't work for me. I was that person that it didn't work for, even though they told me this has a 96%, you know, rate of healing. Not for this girl. And yoga was that for me. Yoga realigned my whole entire body. Yes, it was painful as fuck, but within 6 months, I had no more back pain, no more jaw pain, and I was feeling more connected to my higher self and to my true authentic nature than I had been since I was a teenager. fast forward from there, I went to meditation training in Myanmar and did 30 days of silent meditation. I'm working with a Sayadaw there. Yeah, I know. And I'd never done a silent retreat before. My teacher was like, nah, Kelsey, you don't need to just do 15 days. Do the whole 30.
I was going to say, isn't it normal of Vipassana like 14 days? Yeah.
Yeah, that was, yes. But he offered, he was bringing for the first time people from the West to work with these Sayadaws in this type of training in Myanmar. And so he was having two different groups. The first was the 15 days for the first group and 15 days for the second group. And so when I told him I was just coming for the 15 days, he's like, nah, you're going to stay for the whole time, aren't you? I'm like, okay, why not? And at this point, I had never done that kind of like intensive meditation. Yes, I had meditation in my practice for sure, but not to that extent.
What did that experience like, what did you really get from that experience if you were to like distill it down to like, you know, the bare essence of that? Like what were some of the most profound insights in that experience? I mean, as someone who myself, like my own personal meditation practice has usually been dance or like, you know, or sometimes when I'm working with plant medicines, I find it a little bit easier. But yeah, meditation has definitely not been in the past something that I've really had a lot of ease with, being, you know, someone with a very fiery energy. So tell me, what was that like to have 30 days? Was there like a sense of like inner peace that was just like all pervasive? Like what really came through for you in that experience?
Yeah, wow. That in that space, when you offer yourself that stillness, and I just want to say, meditation, first of all, doesn't have to look like seated on your cushion, you know, and that you have to have a clear mind and all of these things that often meditation gets attached with. It is so much more than that and can be done in so many different ways. So I also really invite you to find your own type of meditation practice. Maybe that's walking through the forest and finding stillness and silence through doing something like that, or through dance, you know. In dance, like you get into these transcendental spaces where you are connected to your higher self and your source, and you're connected to all of the elements, you're connected to the earth, and you just have that clear channel happening. That's also what happened for me. I really went into transcendental spaces where at first it was painful. I at 2:30 in the morning and went to bed at 10:30 at night, and I was moving through 1 hour of sitting meditation, 1 hour of walking meditation throughout the entire day. We only had breakfast and lunch, no dinner. So it was full on, as you can imagine. And when you give yourself that much space and time to really sit with yourself, let me tell you, you work through a lot of stuff. You really see that what's going on in your mind chatter. You really begin to be aware of those stories you tell yourself. Like, I think it was like on day 5 or something, I wrote down in my journal, I came out of the meditation literally laughing because my higher self was like, yeah, you thought you were who? Like literally all of those ideas I had about myself were things that I thought I should be. These were things that people told me I was, you know, these are labels I thought I wanted to be because of what I grew up around and the external experiences that have been projected on us in the Western culture, you know, all of this media and just being a woman and being, you know, not necessarily honored for more than the way she looks.
Well, what's interesting is what I'm really reflecting on too as well is that when you have that time to kind of deconstruct these stories that make up your reality, you have time to like really sift through and be like, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, looking at the reality that you've created from your own beliefs, the ones that you've inherited, and really deconstructing and starting fresh. You know, like that's what I'm
Yeah.
feeling. And so it's really interesting. And I want to maybe like shift this into the current present times that we're living in. Right now, we are living in an era where you get to hear about what's happening on the other side of the world. Media has been corrupted, right? Most media channels are owned by like a few major corporations. Distinguishing, I think, what's true from reality, from lies or fiction. It's all up to perspective. And so, I'm wondering if we can speak to that, or if you can speak to that and how someone would apply that, because right now, reality is getting created on a collective level, right? And we see this with what's happening with this, pandemic, right? Is that there's like, that's the narrative that's being driven, and it's creating that just simply through belief and story. And so, what can you say to that in terms of these times and how you've been handling this whole thing, and kind of using lessons and applying them to right now?
Whew, yeah, I mean, I feel it just as much as anybody else. And I've had to go through so many challenges throughout this whole thing, just like everybody else, And I'm not special more than anyone else. We are all special. And I just desire us so deeply to be seen as equals, and no matter what our choices are, to be respected in our sovereignty. And through the practices that I utilize, they're centered in my personal truth and the truth of my soul. And so for me, fear is dissolved through that. And we move through on a daily. So I'll take you through like a journey, like through the perceptual states as being a shamanic practitioner. And what I've actually realized, my whole life has moved through these stages. It kind of keeps moving through this circle and through this wheel. And we can use these tools and practices to support us through anything that we're going through. Okay?
Yes, please.
So first, I want you to bring something forward around, that maybe it's something in your external environment, maybe it's what's going on with a pandemic, maybe it's around the bee, whatever it may be. Maybe you have a trauma that surfaced right now, really strong. It can be called so many things. So bring that into your awareness right now. And yeah, it feels uncomfortable, right? You're like, this part, this piece, like, oh, right? Okay, now I want you to step into the state of the serpent. Step into the state of the serpent. And this is where you begin to witness this experience as a story. This is just a story in your life, okay? This isn't ingrained into you. This isn't meant to live with you forever. This is just a story. And stories can be changed. They can be rewritten. They can be let go and cleared. So you know how a serpent sheds its skin, sheds those old layers of itself? So just like that serpent, I want you to shed that story as you shed that layer of your outmoded self. Okay? From here, we shift into the perceptual state of Jaguar. And Jaguar is like the great tracker. Okay? And he walks side by side with us. And they support us to walk the rainbow bridge, to meet our soul, to bring these stories and these pieces these stories, because they hold such an emotional charge for us. So in this state, it's usually a lot more emotional. In the serpent state, it's a lot more literal, because you're like just seeing it as the story, seeing it what it is, right? It's usually the surface layer. Well, now we're getting deeper. The jaguar is the tracker. You can even see the jaguar like slinking through the jungle, like, right? Imagine that happening through your body and through your being, through your mind. Okay? And find those pieces that story that you have shed is now uncovering these karmas these wounds from your lineage, from your ancestors, from your childhood, you know, and bring them with Jaguar to the seat of your heart and walk that rainbow bridge to meet your soul. Let go of these labels, these ideas of yourself, because you are more than all of those things. Here is also this, so this stage also really helped me through my divorce, you know, because in this state we also become aware of and relationships that no longer serve us, because we become aware of our adversarial relationships and how we are playing in this adversarial triangle. Like, are you playing the victim? Are you playing the perpetrator or the enabler? Because in fact, if you're playing in any of those parts of the triangle, you're participating in all of it. And you aren't able to do healing from this place.
Can you go back? Can you just rephrase those three aspects of that triangle? Maybe give it some context in terms of, is this from a trauma stance, or is this from, like, where is this couched in the philosophy that you've trained in? There's three that you mentioned.
Yeah. So
just for people that are listening. So there's the victim, the perpetrator, and the enabler. Can you or just describe the three aspects and how they might show up in a relationship?
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you for that clarification. So, you know, a lot of the time, if we're playing the victim in the relationship, we are blaming the other. You know, we are feeling that they're the cause of what's going on. You know, woe is me, and we can kind of continue this this self-talk that isn't allowing us to see the clear picture. Okay. And then the perpetrator can be the blamer. It can also be that instigator, you know, like pushing those buttons. Like, you know, that's something that person really finds as a sensitive part to themselves, or maybe they feel like that's one of their weaknesses, but yet that person is like pushing on that and pushing on that and pushing on that, or you know, you can also put in gaslighting into this area. You know, you telling that this person always thinks they're right. You know, and then the enabler is like feeding what's unhealthy, continuing to feed that, and you kind of both kind of play into that role often in this triangle. So that's why I say, you know, when you're in this triangle, whether you're playing victim, perpetrator, enabler, you're in fact playing in them all. Right.
Would you say that the Jaguar kind of helps to unveil if there's any of that still like in the story of the situation?
Yes, absolutely. Using that tracking energy, that guide, you know, really sniffing that stuff out so that you bring it to the light of your consciousness. And from that light of your consciousness, you are now aware of that, and you step out of that triangle to do your healing.
Okay, and then what comes after the Jaguar?
After the Jaguar is Hummingbird. Yay! Hummingbird is like, it's infinite, right? It's using joy and play as ways of healing and drinking directly from the nectar of life. Because now that you've let go these stories from your lineage and your ancestors, you've let go of these adversarial relationships, you know, now you get to really find that comfort in your higher self, in your intuition. You, in the silence, you hear your soul speak to you more. And you want to, because the first two archetypes, the first two directions can really feel quite arduous, you know, really like like heavy and dense. You want to bring in that playfulness. You want to bring in that joy, because those are such amazing sources of ways of healing, and integrate those into your practices. And so that can look like, because you want to move that stuff through your body, you want to move it out, right? So that can look like yoga. I love my yoga. It can look like dancing. It can look like reciting poetry. Maybe it's getting out in nature, jumping in the river, playing games.
So it's like utilizing expression as a form of catharsis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then what is that final stage? So we've made it to 3 stages. There was the serpent, the jaguar, the hummingbird, and then what is the final one?
Yeah, so now that we moved through Hummingbird, we're so grateful for all of our experiences, because we're moving through our experiences to grow, right? Mm-hmm. They are all a part of our path of our They are all a part of our path to our destiny. And so we move into the state of eagle, the perceptual state of eagle. And here we fly wing to wing with great spirit. We answer the call of our destiny. We see as the visionary, because here you begin to see things with great detail and great clarity.
Beautiful. And so, Kelsey, just for those that maybe aren't familiar with the shamanic traditions, where are some of the lineages that you're drawing your inspiration from and your teachings from? Where have you?
Thank you so much for asking. This is such an important part of our life, is to respect and honor where we receive these teachings from, where they've come from, that we live in reciprocity with all life. Thank you, Pachamama. Thank you, Inti Titi, Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, Star Nation. We really want to live in divine alignment, so we can all move into that place of unity consciousness. And so I just want to say thank you so much to my teacher, Christine Selda, and Anita, for bringing these teachings from Peru. They are from the Caro mountain shamans of Peru. And these teachings were brought to the West, because they felt that, so how do we say this? In so much of the structures that have been built into the life that we have grown up in, it's like there's this hierarchical structure, right? And those higher ups, it's like they have all the power. It's like we were taught that those are the people with power. To be able to feel like we have power, we need to be like them. We need to have more things, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Caro really brought these teachings to the West because they didn't want to hold on to these teachings. They weren't just for themselves. They wanted to spread these teachings so that we can stand in our own power. Because we are building a rainbow nation of warriors so that we can live in unity consciousness. And I'm so grateful that they did so, because now I get to offer these teachings and share them with you.
Thanks for sharing that. And I definitely, as I've been talking with other people that are, studying in different pathways and lineages, it's really interesting, because here most of the people that their families came to Canada or the States and are from Europe and are quote unquote colonizers, we're not connected to our ancestry, and there's been and there's the wounding of that when you've been clipped from your ancestral nest, right? And your own connection to tradition is lost, right? There is a yearning to learn that. But of course, when you don't have access to learn, I think that's where a lot of Indigenous cultures have been realizing that there has been a gaping hole. And, I almost see it as like, we're like these orphaned, bear cubs that have been taken in by, wolves or other animals. Like, you see this out in nature, right? Orphaned animals often are taken care of by other species. And I see that as a lot of, Westerners that have grown up without our own teachings from our lineages, the next best thing is to be able to adopt, of course, with honor and respect, traditions that just help them ground back to the earth, right? And I think that is it's definitely a divisive topic, because some people are very strong, have strong opinions that if you're not from that lineage, you shouldn't learn from it or teach it. And at the same time, we live in a completely different context and reality than even 100 or 200 years ago. And I think that that's where a lot of Indigenous teachers have come to bring this knowledge to help ground Western civilization. Because I can't remember who said it. There was I think it was a Indigenous leader from Australia who said, a large part of the ills in society that we're seeing right now are from the Westerners dreaming, a nightmare into existence versus dreaming a vision of hope, right? And that's where, again, the collective dream space is so important. That, again, it is revering Mama. It is revering nature. When we look at, our culture has been so afraid of nature that we've tried to dominate it, versus having an actual holistic relationship with the land, the elements,
Right.
Yeah. So.
Permission, I think, is, where we can really live with respect, with be given to permission and given respect to the teachings and honoring them for sure.
Mm.
I also just want to remind everyone that these are in our bones, right? These teachings live within us. They are us because we are the universe. It has been scientifically proven. It's in every single cell. Tap into that collective consciousness. Tap into the Akashic records if you know anything about that. You can tap really into this collective energy and just tune into what are those practices and those energetic techniques that are really going to support you, and honor them, that they may have come from somewhere that it feels unknown to you. But if they work for you, go for it. Experiment, try things, It's part of your evolution to keep growing.
Oh, thank you so much for just bringing a little bit of this conversation to light, Kelsey, because I know that you are such a potent guide for people. And you have a really deeply rooted understanding of the shamanic path that, is coming from traditions that have been steeped in it for so long. So I'm really grateful that you've brought a little bit of that path to us today through this conversation. And so you work with people, in a holistic spiritual fashion. Can you just talk a little bit about like soul illumination and the work that you do with people, and how people can find out more about who you are and how they can reach out to you for support or resources?
Yeah. It took me a long time to be able to get to a place to call myself the Soul Illuminator. And I didn't really understand, what it really was for the first while. To many, what it probably looks like is that you are a giver. You are a caregiver, and you love to be of service to people because you innately see their highest self and their best self, and that's exactly where I came from. My weakness is my strength, and my strength is my weakness. And you can give all of your power away to other people, but you eventually learn that you can take all of that power back, and you can stand in that power and illuminate your soul, therefore illuminating other souls. And that's just it. Like, I literally see everybody's soul just shining so bright. They're every possibility and opportunity available to them. So for me, it's really effortless to be able to hold them in their limitless power, in their limitless potential, hold them in their highest frequency while they're working with me, while they're moving through, whatever they're ready to work through. Another huge thing that these teachings really supported me in is I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. I lived for the last 6 years working on what is wrong with me, like trying to fix myself and thinking that it was something wrong with my body, and all of these things, whether if it's your nervous system is shooken up or because of consistent trauma and emotion or limiting beliefs, or you're having these symptoms show up in your body, this isn't just like this spiritual practice. This is all scientifically proven too. You know, you can rewire your brain body connection. And so I incorporate both of those teachings, both ancient wisdom and modern science, when we work one-on-one together. So you can find me on my website if you want to work and do a mentorship one-on-one with me. I'm currently receiving only 4, so please get your applications into me or ask for that application. I'll send it to you right away. Another really awesome way to work with me right now is to sign up for my yoga program. You know, I teach online yoga 3 times a week. And not only that, if you can't attend the live online, you get access to like over 50 recorded classes that I've done over months of offering classes. And you get a taste of these teachings, and you begin to really learn how to rewire the brain-body connection, so you're living with intention, and it's no longer that old programming, you know, those past stories running your life. You get to choose your life. You get to create it. And when you move through that body with hearing those wisdom teachings throughout it, then it just weaves like golden threads into the fabric of your being. And then I have an amazing freebie for all of you. I just created the most fabulous free offering. Like, I would charge a lot for this course, but I am inspired, you know, and it's really important for me to be of service to my community. And I was in those places where I wasn't ready to invest in a mentor. You know, I wasn't ready to spend $100 or thousands of dollars on a course, you know, and this is even working with Phoenix, you know, like this, I took all of her freebies. I did all of the different incremental things until I took her on as my mentor and guide. I'm so happy I did. So I wanted to offer the same offering for you, so you can really just, you know, learn to build that trust with me and trust within yourself. And they held a really high frequency. Every word is of the highest of frequency. So just listening to the videos and working through your workbook is going to be an amazing start to your journey of health and vitality. We're all meant to thrive here.
Can you just describe what it is, though?
Oh, right. So the freebie is like taking you through what I took you through today. It's going through the different directions and through the perceptual states to work through your trauma, your limiting beliefs, you know, old conditioning stories, things that are really limiting you from not living in alignment with your true self. It's so that you can move into your most authentic nature. And I've called it From Wounded Healer to Visionary and Sage.
Oh, beautiful. Love that, Kelsey. And I guess, yeah, just thank you for illuminating to the archetype of the mystic, because really, you know, the mystic archetype is that, and again, it doesn't matter your gender, your orientation, you know, it is that the alchemist is the archetype that takes pain and trauma and transforms it and alchemizes it, right? And it's, you know, the mystic is that archetype that is not looking outwards. They're first mastering within, and they're going into that inner landscape. And so I just really appreciate you bringing us on a journey of how to do that through the shamanic lens. I really appreciated that.
You're very welcome.
Illumination, because it's definitely an aspect, especially the Peruvian traditions, that I haven't been as familiar with. So thank you so much for being with us here today and just sharing a little bit more about who you are and your journey in shamanic training, and just the power that it can have to help one transform their perception and their reality and their lived experience. So I'm deeply grateful for this conversation today, and thank you so much. It's been such a good topic.
Thank you, Queen. Thank you, sister. It's been such an honor and a pleasure. Yeah. May you all remember your luminous form. May you all remember your limitless nature. And, you know, live out your uniqueness.
Beautiful.